This is Wool Lincoln, a chubby otaku who just can't say no. Which is why he's always getting picked on at school. Tired of all the nonsense, he decided to focus on his studies to see if he could change his life in the future. His biggest dream was that in adulthood, people would be judged by their skills, and not just their looks, but it didn't take long for him to discover that, besides being a chubby otaku, he was also a terrible student with awful grades. After graduating, the only job he could land was as a human punching bag at a gym. Basically, the ad was looking for someone over 90 kg who didn't need a diploma. In the end, he found himself in the same cycle, except now the ones hitting him were professional fighters. Crying his eyes out, the young man wonders why everyone always treats him so badly. Suddenly, while he was zoning out, a big strong hand grabbed his shoulder. It was his supervisor, Mei Rensing, asking for a little help with the gym's monthly report. Wu tries to argue that he's just a sparring partner, but he already knows he won't be able to turn down the task. Seeing his hesitation, the supervisor gets annoyed, flexes his muscles, and asks in a very threatening way what he just said. Scared, the chubby guy immediately agrees to do the report, and his boss tells him to hurry up. Just when he thought the nightmare was over, the supervisor calls his name and Wu looks back, already exhausted at that moment. All the other buff guys from the team show up, asking him to do their reports too. With a dark look in his eyes, it seemed like the protagonist was finally going to snap and tell everyone to take a hike, but he just gives a tired smile and agrees to do everyone's work, proving he really doesn't know how to say no. It's midnight now, and the street is pitch black, with the only light coming from a single lonely street light. Working on his computer, he cries and wonders why he didn't refuse, since he wouldn't earn an extra cent for it. All of a sudden, the guy feels an incredible pain in his chest, like his heart was about to explode at any moment. He remembers the doctor warning him that if he didn't lose weight, he would one day just drop unexpectedly. Feeling like his time was up, the chubby guy tries to grab his phone to call for an ambulance, but to make matters worse, a message pops up saying his service was cut off due to non-payment. With no hope left, he realizes he's really going to pass on, right there alone in that dark room. However, in a last-ditch effort, he decides he needs to change and that he won't go out as a simple otaku. So he clicks to delete his secret study materials folder from his computer. Satisfied with his final act of dignity, he smiles and rests his head on the desk, feeling like he can finally go in peace. His last thought is a wish that in his next life he won't be an otaku anymore, but instead of delete, the mouse clicks on send to all, and a new message appears on the screen. Elsewhere, his supervisor is surprised that Xiao Wu's report was finished so quickly. Curious, he opens the folder he received to see what the kid had sent him. Suddenly, a very suspicious video starts playing in the middle of the meeting, and everyone panics. The protagonist, eyes widen in pure shock at the colossal blunder he just made. Inexplicably, he now sees himself as a bait and wonders if he really did restart his life. 20,000 years later, the story takes us to the continent of Kyushu, in a place called Damjo. A beautiful fox girl hugs a young man from behind and affectionately calls him Brother Lincoln. Her name is Tushan Xiaoyu, and she asks why he's still on the mountain when they had promised to explore the world. The man, who has trained for 20,000 years, simply lifts the entire mountain with just one arm. He introduces himself as Wu Lincoln, an ordinary person with just a little extra strength, and says he would cause trouble. The girl is shocked and screams, wondering how on earth an ordinary person could lift an entire mountain. He confirms that he was indeed reincarnated and spent the last 20,000 years training on that very mountain. He then explains that he came into the world as the young master of a demonic sect that went bankrupt to avoid being hunted. He hid in the mountains and tells the girl that his training is finally over. The young man thanks the little fox for her company, saying that without her he would have gone crazy from boredom. Because of the lessons from his past life, he became super disciplined and trained every single day for 20,000 years. However, after training for so long, he realized something very important about himself. Suddenly, a giant snake appears in front of them and stares at them with red eyes. Full of hunger, he realized he was a Wulingan, in other words, someone with no spiritual root for cultivation. The snake then lunges to attack them, and he says that besides his highly trained physique, he has nothing else. Even so, he isn't phased and prepares to face the creature with just his fists. With a single punch, he hits the monster square on and sends it flying with incredible force. The impact is so powerful that the snake's body smashes through an entire rock wall. Upon impact, Wulingan himself is surprised by the result, showing that he has no idea of his own strength. With a smile, he suggests to the girl that they have snake meat for dinner tonight. The girl eagerly agrees, and the two of them get ready to enjoy the unexpected meal. Xiaoyu thinks that as expected, her brother Lincoln took down a flood dragon with a single punch. As he prepares the meat, an angry voice shouts, calling the young man a bold thief. A man floating on a sword accuses the pair of stealing the dragon he was just about to defeat, introduces himself as Xiao Chunhuo, and accuses them of being from the demonic sect. Because of his shameful act, the protagonist just looks at the guy with a bored expression, not caring at all about the accusations. In a panic, the young man denies everything and wonders how the man discovered the truth about them. Right after, he throws himself on the ground and apologizes, Saying it wasn't his intention to take the creature, the instructor glares at them with contempt and identifies them as a fox, demon, and a human with no power. Realizing that talking would be pointless, the man decides it's time to stop wasting time on them. Without hesitation, he charges forward with his sword, using a powerful technique to finish the duo off at once. To the instructor's surprise, the protagonist simply catches the flying sword with his bare hands. Man falls to the ground in complete shock and points at the young man. Unable to believe what just happened, with wide eyes, he can't understand how an ordinary boy managed to catch his flying sword. Wu Linjin apologizes for taking his weapon, but says he had no choice since the man was about to take him out. Furious at his audacity, the instructor summons dozens of flying swords and sends them after them. The young master calmly faces the shower of blades and prepares for the attack coming his way. Using incredible speed, he moves across the battlefield and manages to catch all the swords in midair. He then appears holding the weapons and says he caught them on instinct, while Xiao Yu looks at him with an adoring gaze. The instructor is frozen in shock and stares at the young man with an expression of pure disbelief. Seeing he didn't stand a chance, the man turns and runs desperately into the forest. A moment later, he returns with a sheepish grin and says it was all just a big misunderstanding. He politely asks the young master to return his swords and promises to leave as soon as he gets them. However, as the young man prepares to toss the weapons, the instructor readies a cowardly attack from behind. With a wicked smile on his face, he fires a powerful blast of fire toward the protagonist. The attack tears through the forest, destroying everything in its path with impressive force. Wu Linjin agrees to return the weapons and throws them back to the instructor's promised. With his body completely scorched, the man can't believe his attack didn't work on him. The fire blast simply dissipated around the young man's body without leaving a single scratch. Not caring about the man, who calls the girl and says they need to go back and cook before they leave, the fox approaches the instructor and calls him over for a serious talk. With a scary look, she threatens him and says she doesn't want to hear a word about what happened there. Terrified, the man repeatedly agrees with the girl while trembling in fear, sweat dripping down his face. Wu calls for Xiao Yao to leave and she runs to catch up with him. With a smile and hearts floating in the air, the instructor watches the pair walk away, with him carrying the giant snake's body with a single hand. Kneeling on the ground, he wonders who those mysterious people are and where they came from. Then, with a wicked smile, he thinks that they can be happy for now, but it won't last long. He promises to tell the old ancestor of the academy everything, and make sure those cultivators pay for what they did. Meanwhile, the girl comments that he defeated cultivators and still insists on saying he's an ordinary person. The young man replies that he would be no match for a real cultivator and that the man was just messing with them. He says that because he's an ordinary person with no spiritual roots, he needs to train his body even more. Then as he walks, he wraps the snake's tail around his body as if it were just another exercise. Xiao Yu thinks that even though he's so naive, he's very cute when he acts in this clumsy way. The scene changes to a mountainous landscape, showing the path the couple is taking. They arrive at a dark cave, and Wu Linjin announces that he's coming and carrying the food. At the cave entrance, a sign already warned of the demonic presence and the 10 unforgivable crimes. Inside the cave, an imposing man shouts, asking who dares to enter the sect's territory. With an innocent smile, the protagonist replies that he brought snake meat for their dinner. The man's expression completely changes, and he says that little Lincoln has finally come to visit them. Behind the bars, everyone gets excited and asks him to pass the meat, as they are starving. The young man explains that they may not look like good people, but they are uncles who care a lot about him. Suddenly, one of the men, who seems to be the leader, gets angry and complains about something important. He is Woody Lincoln's father, and he scolds his son for not visiting him in the last 3 hours. The young man explains that he was delayed by hunting and cooking, and comments that his father loves to throw tantrums. The man asks if the girl convinced him to go down the mountain again, and his son denies it. Furious, the father yells that he absolutely cannot leave the mountain, as it's too dangerous out there. Wu Linjin and Xiao Yu are surprised by the father's over-the-top reaction as he continues to shout at them. Man says that even after being sealed for 20,000 years, he still remembers the cunning of the people of the righteous path. He continues his lecture and asks if his son wants him, an old man, to have to bury his own child. The young master lowers his head and apologizes to his father, but it seems he has something more to say. Angrily, he shouts that he's tired of hearing the same things for the past 20,000 years. The father is shocked by his son's boldness and stares at him speechless. Not knowing what to say, the young man says he doesn't want to be trapped in that forest anymore, even if he gets hunted, hurt, or worse. The other men say he's naive and that leaving now would be a final mistake. As he's still too weak, the girl interrupts the argument and reveals that they just encountered a cultivator from a righteous path. She says the man was at the nascent soul stage, but Lyndon defeated him with a single punch. The father wonders how a righteous cultivator showed up there, and if his son has really gotten that strong. Even so, he reminds the young man that he is still an ordinary person without any spiritual root. He questions how the young man will face stronger cultivators, even if he has the strength of one of them. The man tells him not to think he's invincible just because he defeated 1 or 2 cultivators. The protagonist shouts that he's not interested in being invincible and that he has a much bigger goal. He explains that only by reaching the tribulation stage can he break the seal and rescue all of them. Furious, the father asked the other men if they were the ones who told his son this, and they all deny it at once. The young man remembers how his father always protected him, even while being sealed for 20,000 years. With determination he says that now that he's grown up, it's his turn to protect his father and his entire family. The girl interrupts the conversation and says they seem to have forgotten something very important. She explains that since Lincoln has no demonic aura, people won't discover his true identity. The father is still worried and says that if he releases any demonic aura during a breakthrough, it will be the end for him. The young man has already made up his mind and tells his father not to blame him. As he turns to leave the cave, the man watches him go with a sad but resigned expression, accepting his son's decision. Just as he was leaving, his father yells for him to stop and throws an object in his direction. The young man catches the object in the air and is confused, not understanding what his father just threw at him. The object is a small amulet with his name written on it, and a symbol he doesn't recognize. The father reveals that it is the pass for the Swanson Academy's qualification exam. He says that since his son insists on going down the mountain, that could be his first stop. Swanson Academy is the best cultivator academy, and everyone graduates at the golden core stage. The girl questions if it wouldn't be more dangerous to go there, but the father explains it's the safest place. Besides, the academy has countless cultivation paths, and it would be the ideal place for his son to find his way. The young master takes the snake meat to cook as he prepares for his new journey. With a giant backpack on, he says his goodbyes and shouts that he's heading to Swanson Academy. The girl asks how his father got that rare pass. Even while being trapped, he refuses to answer. The man says he can no longer protect his son and needs to find a way to keep him safe. Sending him to the academy is the best option he could find to ensure the young man's survival. The father then reveals that there is a secret about his son's body that he needs to share with her. He asks the almost emperor, level 9 tailed fox, to protect the young man at all costs. The girl understands the importance of the mission, but raises a very important practical question with a bored look. She asks who's going to bring them food when the two of them leave. All the men become desperate at the question and stare at the girl with wide eyes. The father shouts for them to eat quickly, as this will be the last good meal to have for a long time. The fox says goodbye to the old man and prepares to leave, but he calls her back for one last warning. Annoyed, she asks what he wants and warns him that she won't be bringing food for anyone there anymore. The man warns her that the world is on the verge of collapse, and that there isn't much time left for them. He says that the hidden power within Lincoln needs to awaken soon, because their time is running out. The scene cuts to the entrance of Swanson Academy, an imposing place full of young aspiring cultivators. The guards shout at the candidates, telling them to maintain order and not to cut in line under any circumstances. All the young people prepare for the exam with their tokens in hand, eagerly awaiting the start of the test. Carrying his giant luggage, the protagonist observes the place and hopes not to draw too much attention. An instructor explains that everyone must insert their tokens into the mouth of the stone lion at the entrance. The statue will detect the authenticity of the passes and whether there are any demonic spies among them. The instructor calls the first person in line and tells them to hurry up and start the verification process. The young man approaches the lion and inserts his token into the statue's mouth carefully and with a bit of nervousness. A blue light shines from the statue, indicating that the pass is authentic and the candidate is clear. The instructor lets him enter and the young man thanks him. Relieved to have passed the first test, Woolingen gets extremely nervous and wonders if the token his father gave him is a fake. He tries to calm down, thinking that since he doesn't practice demonic cultivation, he shouldn't be detected. Suddenly, a scream of pain echoes through the area, and everyone turns to see what happened in the lion. A demonic cultivator was discovered by the statue, which clamped down on his hand and wouldn't let go. One of the candidates explains that the lion is made of a special material that doesn't let go when it detects something suspicious. The man begs for his life, saying he only forged the token and that he's not a demonic cultivator. The instructor calls the next person and points to the protagonist, saying his turn has finally come. He says the guy with the big backpack seems to be the most suspicious of all and tells him to insert his token. Trembling with fear, the young man approaches the stone lion and prepares for the test that could define his future. All of a sudden the ground starts to shake violently and the other candidates wonder if it's an earthquake. The statue begins to bite down on the protagonist's arm, who feels an unbearable pain in the area. However, to everyone's surprise, the token is accepted and the instructor says everything is fine. Relieved, the young man sighs and celebrates having managed to pass without being discovered by the statue. But the stone lion's eyes turn red, and it seems to be very angry with the young man. The entire statue starts to glow red, and the protagonist doesn't understand what's happening. With incredible force, the statue starts to crack and bites down on his arm with even more strength. Suddenly, the lion's head flies off and hits the young master's other arm, leaving him completely shocked. Without even trying, the young man ends up breaking the entire statue into pieces. In front of everyone, the instructor is left speechless at the scene. While the protagonist stares at the destruction he caused embarrassed, he crouches down and starts picking up the pieces, apologizing for the accident. The instructor furiously yells that he's also a demonic cultivator and orders him to be seized at once. The guards surround him, and he asks why he's being detained if his pass was approved. The man explains that the lion automatically attacks when it senses any kind of demonic energy nearby. The young man panics and thinks he was contaminated by his family's aura from living with them for so long. Just as he was about to be taken away, the fox girl appears and shouts for everyone to stop immediately. She says they're being careless and everyone is captivated by her stunning beauty. The instructor asks why a member of a monster clan is meddling in the academy's affairs. Ignoring the question, she approaches the young man and holds his arm protectively. She declares herself Brother Lincoln's guardian and asks why she shouldn't be involved in this. The other candidates are surprised and comment that he must have a very important family background. The fox tells the man to take a closer look at the origin of the admission pass he's holding. The instructor looks at the ground and recognizes the token of the legendary #1 sect in the world. She confirms that it's from the sect that was destroyed 20,000 years ago and that Ling Jian is the only living successor. One of the candidates questions how the most powerful sect in the world was destroyed by a demonic cult. Another young man explains that the sect's name was literally the #1 sect in the world. The fox girl insists it's understandable that the past is contaminated with demonic energy. The instructor thinks the boy inherited the legacy by accident and that he needs to handle the situation very carefully. He lets the couple go but warns them not to do anything suspicious, and the protagonist assures him they'll behave. The fox pulls the young man inside the academy, and they finally begin their new journey. She tells him not to be so tense, but the young man is still very nervous about the whole situation. She advises him to act as he always does, and that way no one will suspect his true identity. They enter the academy gates and find themselves in a huge courtyard full of other students. From a tower, a man observes the new students with a serious and imposing expression. He is May Amley, one of the academy's instructors, and he seems to be evaluating the newcomers who have arrived. Another instructor approaches and asks how this year's new students are doing. Manley replies that they're not bad and that there are some quite promising students among them. He points to Beatty from Yujian Peak and Tai Shankao from the Hilun sect as good examples. The young master of the Hilun sect approaches Beatty and invites her for some dual cultivation. Angrily, the girl tells him to get lost and rejects him without even looking at his face. The others comment that she's the super genius who reached the foundation stage 11 years old. Day thinks her father was right and that none of the newcomers there are worthy of her attention. May only agrees that the quality of the new students isn't bad, but he feels that something is off. Suddenly he sees the protagonist tossing gigantic weights into the air and wonders what on earth that is. The other instructor laughs and says he must have just passed the Q refining stage. May only replies that with such a flashy character he probably won't pass the first test. He then jumps from the tower and flies toward the new students to begin the admission exam. The candidates are impressed by the instructor's ability to fly. As if it were nothing, he introduces himself as the one in charge of evaluating the new students and explains the next step. Only those who pass all the tests will be eligible to become disciples of the academy. The protagonist feels like he's seen the instructor somewhere before, but can't remember where. The man yells at the young man, asking why he's staring him in that strange way. Embarrassed, he tries to explain himself, but ends up saying something that catches the instructor's attention. He points to a shiny wire attached to the man's back and says it's a bit reflective. Everyone looks up and sees that the instructor is hanging by a wire, as if he were a puppet. Suddenly, the wire snaps and the man falls to the ground in front of all the shocked students. He approaches the young man and says he's looking forward to seeing his results in the upcoming test. The wire then pulls him back into the air, and the instructor becomes furious with the embarrassing situation. He yells at his assistant for not stopping in the right place, and threatens him with a deadly glare. The white-haired girl wonders how an academy instructor can't even fly properly. The other instructor thinks the young man is in trouble for having offended such a petty man. Suddenly the instructor rips his shirt off and shows off his muscular physique to all the students. He says that was just to lighten the mood. That now will start the first round of the test. The young master wonders if the instructor is crazy and if he needs to rip his shirt to start the test. One of the students recognizes the instructor's aura and muscles and is shocked by the discovery. He reveals that it's the legendary sacred punching bag body, an extremely rare ability. This ability absorbs enemy attacks and converts the energy for the user's own use. In other words, he's practically immune to attacks from people of the same level or lower. The protagonist is horrified at the thought that you have to enjoy getting hit to become strong. The instructor explains that each of them will punch him, and he will judge their potential. He glares at the young man and says that since the test is under his control, he will ensure he fails. The man points to the young master and says he will be the first to participate in the test. The protagonist approaches and tells the instructor to get ready because he's very strong. The man laughs and says that not even a nascent soul cultivator could hurt him. He continues to mock the young man and says there's no way a rookie like him could injure him. But before he could finish his sentence, the protagonist hits him with a devastating punch. The impact is so strong that the instructor flies far away and destroys part of the academy with his body. All the other candidates are shocked and stare at the scene with their eyes wide open. The other instructor is also speechless. Upon seeing the destruction caused by the young man's punch, the young master looks through the hole in the wall and sees the mess he just caused. With a pale face and breaking into a cold sweat, he realizes he overdid it with the force, and that it's all over for him now. He finds the instructor lying in the rubble, completely knocked out and defeated. The man is unconscious and foaming at the mouth, showing the force of the blow he received. Without caring about the destruction, the protagonist turns around and asks if this means he passed. The other students are terrified by the scene and back away from the young man. Afraid of his strength, the fox jumps from rooftop to get closer and observe the chaos up close. With a proud smile, she thinks it was expected that her brother would attract attention right from the start. The other candidates wonder how the instructor was defeated. If he was supposedly immune to attacks, the white-haired girl realizes she's not the only one hiding her true strength there. The colorful instructor approaches his fallen colleague and seems impressed by what happened. He says the power of the young man's punch was almost at the final level of the nascent soul stage. Suddenly, the fallen man starts to get up and his eyes open with renewed fury. He quickly gets to his feet and glares at the protagonist with a look of pure anger and determination. Running towards the young man, he grabs him and starts yelling at him for attacking him. He complains that the young man attacked him when he wasn't ready, and on top of that hit his face instead of his stomach. The chubby guy realizes the instructor wasn't prepared, and that's why he couldn't withstand the punch. The man says the previous test doesn't count and that he will disqualify him if he uses tricks again. He then activates his special ability, the immovable sacred punching bag body. The other young man explains that this is the ultimate defense, which converts all power into pure defense. The instructor says he uses this technique in final tests and that not even with all the strength in the world would he be moved. The protagonist then hits him with another powerful punch right in the middle of the man's chest. The blow sinks into the instructor's chest, but he doesn't move a single centimeter from where he stands. The other students are impressed and comment that he really didn't move at all. However, the other instructor realizes that something is very wrong with the scene and becomes suspicious. The colorful instructor reveals that his colleague actually passed out, standing up from the pain of the blow. To avoid more trouble, he announces that everyone has passed the first round of the exam. The students celebrate their approval while wondering what realm the protagonist is really in. The white-haired young man approaches and says he didn't expect to find another strong person there. He introduces himself as Xiaomei from the Huang sect and says his hobby is dual cultivation. He reluctantly accepts the protagonist as his brother, and the young man wonders if he wants something more. The chubby guy from the TNG sect approaches and asks to be accepted as a younger brother too. He offers to provide accurate information in exchange for the protection of the two strong young men. The boy says he collects information, but has no data on the mysterious protagonist. With a friendly smile, he asks which sector school the young master is part of. The protagonist gets nervous and stammers, saying he's a lone cultivator with no affiliation. Suddenly, the white-haired girl approaches, and everyone makes way for the goddess to pass. She says he loves to be the center of attention, and that she will show him the difference between him and a true genius after challenging him. She turns and walks away, leaving the young man completely confused by the situation. The hooded young man watches the scene from afar. With a mysterious and enigmatic look, the colorful instructor shouts not to celebrate too soon. As the next test is about to begin, he presses a red button on a remote control and something unexpected happens to everyone. The floor beneath their feet opens up and they fall into a dark, braided room just below. The candidates wonder what is happening and feel the floor tremble violently. They hold on to each other to keep from falling. As the entire room starts to shake, outside the room is revealed to be a giant metal cube floating in the middle of the academy. Inside the cube, mechanical statues with red eyes prepare to attack the candidates. Robots with armor and pointed helmets line up, ready to begin the next test. The students are surrounded by the gigantic machines, with nowhere to run or hide. The colorful instructor introduces himself as Huang Luhang and says he will be the examiner for the second round. He reveals that all the puppet mechanisms were created by his giant pavilion during the test. The machines will attack continuously, with weapons hidden in their bodies. The test will last for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, and the longer they last, the higher their score will be. He lights the incense stick on the unconscious instructor and says it's not good for the weak to pass by pure luck. The protagonist faces the robots as the instructor explains that the weapons are all real. The robots' eyes glow with a blue light, and they prepare to fire at the students. With a wicked smile, the instructor welcomes them to the candidate's graveyard and starts the test. The robots fire beams of light, and the students run desperately to dodge the attacks. The machines shoot lasers from their mouths, creating total chaos inside the test room. Many candidates are hit and give up on the test, while others fight to survive. The instructor watches the scene and comments that the guy from A1's sect isn't doing too badly. The white-haired young man uses the special technique to protect himself from attacks coming from behind. He boasts that with his technique, no one can attack him from behind by surprise, but suddenly a beam hits him square in the chest, and he's shocked by the frontal attack. The instructor pretends he didn't say anything and looks away, embarrassed by his previous comment. The colorful instructor is shocked to see the strength of another promising candidate. Among the newcomers, the white-haired girl proves to be surprisingly strong, dodging attacks with great agility. She is surprised to see that the protagonist is standing still in the middle of the battlefield. Without moving, he simply breaks the floor beneath his feet and crouches down to avoid being hit by the beams. With a relieved sigh, he thinks that this way he won't be hit by the robots' attacks. The instructor yells at him and says the test is about speed, not about hiding like a coward. He threatens to disqualify the young man if he breaks any more of his precious robots again. The white-haired girl says that she will get the young man out of there and prepares to intervene. But the other instructor grabs the remote control and says she doesn't need to waste her time on the boy. He lights a cigarette and says he's gonna let the young man feel the true power of his puppets. With a wicked smile, he presses the button and activates the battle robot's most powerful mode. The machines start to tremble and dismantle in front of all the frightened candidates. The parts of the robots begin to join together and transform into an even larger machine. Intense light shines as the fusion occurs, and a new giant robot emerges on the field. The protagonist is shocked and wonders if those are the Transformers he knew. The chubby guy shouts that it's a UN-wrong fusion and that the robots are now much stronger. He also reveals that the puppets' weapons are coated with a deadly and dangerous poison. The boy says he only noticed the poison because he's feeling very dizzy and about to pass out. The instructor says this isn't a lesson and that they are taking the test too far. The other man asks if he doesn't want the arrogant boy to pass the test, and he agrees. The giant robot fires a volley of shots, and the protagonist moves quickly to dodge. He dodges the attacks with surprising agility and leaves the other candidates behind. The young man looks back and realizes that the others are being hit by the attacks he dodged. He feels guilty for dragging them into the mess and apologizes for his mistake. The instructor threatens to send more robots after him, but the young man seems to have a plan in mind. He is surrounded by the giant machines and prepares for the robot's final attack. With an aura of energy around him, he faces the machines with determination and courage. The instructors warn him that if he damages any more robots, he will be disqualified immediately. The other students realize that all the robots are focused on him and feel relieved. The white-haired girl thinks he's in trouble and that her father was right about him. The protagonist stands still in the middle of the robots and seems to be concentrating for an attack. He tells himself that this is the only way to resolve the situation and prepares to act with a powerful leap. He launches himself into the air and flies toward the giant robot. He lands a devastating blow on the robot's head and completely destroys it with his strength. The instructors are shocked and wonder how he managed to fly like that. The other candidates also don't understand and wonder what realm he is currently in. The chubby guy explains that he's not using spiritual aura to fly, but something else. He's using only the strength of his legs to jump and stay in the air for a while. Everyone is impressed by the young man's physical strength and can't believe what they're seeing. The instructor says that no matter how strong he is, there's a limit and he won't stay in the air for long. He orders the robots to attack the spot where the young man will land. To catch him by surprise, the protagonist senses the danger and wonders what to do since he can't destroy the robots. He then gets an idea and uses one of the robots as a fulcrum to launch himself elsewhere. With a quick movement, he steps on the spears and changes direction in midair to escape the attack. He lands in front of a white-haired girl who stares at him with a surprised expression. Kneeling in front of her, the young man smiles and asks what she's gonna do now that they're together. The girl blushes and wonders if he's the type of creep her father warned her to be careful of. Suddenly he hides behind her and uses her as a human shield against the robot's attacks. The girl's swords block the beams and she yells at him for using her as a shield. The young man apologizes and says it was the only way he could think of to survive. Furious, she attacks him with her sword, but he manages to dodge the blow with a quick move. She says she'll finish him off first and glares at him with a look of pure anger and determination. Suddenly the protagonist yells for her to stop and points to the flames coming their way. The other students watch the scene and comment that Boss Lincoln keeps dodging the attacks. The instructor laughs and says that now he has nowhere to escape with so many attacks coming from all sides. The two instructors watch the scene from afar, waiting to see how the young man will get out of this. Suddenly the incense stick that was in the instructor's mouth falls and an idea pops into someone's mind. The colorful instructor has a plan and glares at the protagonist with a look of pure malice. The white-haired girl wonders if he has given up, but the young man seems to have another idea in mind. He turns to her with a smile and seems to have a plan to escape the situation. He starts to take a deep breath and concentrate a large amount of energy in his body. The instructors wonder what he's doing, taking deep breaths when he's about to be done for. Suddenly he blows with all his might, and creates a powerful gust of wind that hits everyone in the room. The other candidates are swept away by the wind, and struggle not to be thrown far away. The instructor thinks it's just a bluff, and that he won't be able to do anything against them. The gust of wind hits the instructor's hair and messes it up completely, leaving him in a sorry state. He approaches the man and asks if he can interrupt for a moment to say something. The young man points to the cigarette and says that the test incense seems to have gone out. The colorful instructor realizes that the blowing accelerated the burning of the incense and is completely shocked. The chubby guy says that Boss Lincoln has a deeper purpose with his mysterious actions. He says the young man is trying to get benefits for all the other candidates. In the room, the white-haired girl blushes and gets angry at the embarrassing situation he caused. She yells that this isn't over and runs away, embarrassed by the scene she witnessed. The protagonist wonders what he did wrong for her to react in such a strange way. The other students are injured but grateful for the young man's help during that difficult test. The colorful instructor smiles and says it's been many years since he's met such an interesting freshman. Suddenly the academy's dean appears and says that this year's assessment is very lively. The students are shocked by the presence of the academy's headmaster and can't believe what they're seeing. They comment that he doesn't look very trustworthy and that his wig is about to fall off his head. The chubby guy reveals that he is the legendary Red Flame Shurayushin Singh, a much feared man. The other students are confused by the revelation and don't understand the story behind the dean. They wonder why his red hair is fake if he's such a legendary and feared figure. The dean approaches the protagonist and asks for his name to know who the talented young man is. From the rooftop, the fox girl watches the scene with concern and apprehension for the young man. She wonders why the headmaster suddenly appeared and how she's gonna fix the situation now. She uses telepathy to speak to the young man, and he hears her voice in his mind. Completely confused, the girl warns him that he knocked off the headmaster's wig and needs to put it back on as quickly as possible. The instructor approaches the headmaster and tries to calm the situation, asking him to be magnanimous. He says that if the instructor were as strong as the headmaster, there would be no problem with the young man. The protagonist runs toward the headmaster with impressive speed and catches the wig in midair. He places it back on the headmaster's head, and the man is shocked by the young man's speed. The headmaster can hardly believe what happened, and thinks he wouldn't have noticed if it weren't for his sharp eyes. The young master smiles and says he picked up what he dropped, that there's no need to thank him. The instructor is shocked to see that the protagonist put the wig back on backward. The dean ends up with a flag stuck in his head and seems to be seriously injured. The fox girl desperately yells for him to distinguish between the wood and the hidden weapons. The instructor grabs the young man and accuses him of attacking the headmaster, but he says he must have been mistaken. The dean says that small things like that can't hurt him, but he seems to be in a lot of pain. The instructor points out that his blood is dripping, but he says it's part of the test. The protagonist praises the headmaster for not being fazed, but the fox knows he's just pretending. The headmaster tries to pull the weapon from his head, but ends up causing himself more serious injuries. Blood gushes everywhere, and the protagonist is shocked by the grotesque scene. He then faints and falls face first onto the ground in front of all the students, who are frightened by the scene. The instructor runs to help the headmaster and holds him in his arms, desperate about this situation. The students comment that he seems like an old man who only knows how to talk a lot but has no real power. The colorful instructor announces that everyone has passed the second round and that the next test will be tomorrow. He orders the headmaster be taken to the alchemy hall for urgent medical treatment. The students wonder if they really passed the assessment and feel that something is wrong. One of them says it feels like they forgot something important, but can't remember what it is. Suddenly the robots start attacking again, and one of the students shouts for Master Wang to turn them off. The instructor, who offended him, watches from a distance with a wicked smile and a plan in mind. He thinks he didn't expect the young man to give himself up so easily and prepares to act. The other students complain that they almost perished in the test and wonder how they survive. The scene changes to the students' dormitory, where everyone is preparing for the next day. The fox girl finds the protagonist training and asks why he isn't resting. He says he needs to keep strengthening his skills to pass tomorrow's assessment. She agrees that the next assessment is crucial, as only in a better class will they have more resources. However, she reminds him that balancing work and rest is also very important for him. She offers to apply an oil to unblock his meridians, but he is suspicious. The girl thinks that Lincoln is the most ambitious of all, but he seems uncomfortable with her. He warns her to be careful, and she takes the chance to hug him tightly and get closer. With a victorious smile, she thinks her plan has finally worked and that she got what she wanted. Outside, the white-haired girl is getting ready for bed, but hears something strange. She is furious with the protagonist and promises he will pay for what he did to her. She hears a noise coming from the young man's room and approaches to investigate what is happening. Curious, she wonders what that sound is and gets closer to the window to peek inside. She looks through the window and is shocked by the scene unfolding inside the room. She sees the shadows of the protagonist and a fox girl in a compromising position and gets scared inside the room. The young man is jumping rope with a heavy iron chain, and says he forgot it. The girl says she spilled the wine for external injuries and gets ready to clean up the mess. She grabs a cloth and bends down to wipe the spilled liquid from the room's floor. Suddenly she steps on the liquid and slips, falling to the ground in a clumsy and funny way. Outside, the white-haired girl thinks she needs to save the other girl from the situation. She sees the fox's shadow approaching the window and thinks it's too late to save her. She covers her eyes with her hands and blushes at the scene she imagines is happening there. The protagonist asks if she's okay, and she replies that she just fell on the floor by accident. She says her clothes got dirty and stands up, showing the damage the wine did. The young man blushes at the scene and turns away so as not to look at the girl. In that situation, he offers to find clean clothes for her, and the girl thanks him for his consideration. Suddenly the room door is kicked open with a strong kick, and someone enters furiously. The white-haired girl bursts into the room and accuses him of being a murderous demon, telling him to surrender. She sees the scene of a shirtless young man and the fox girl with torn clothes and is completely shocked. She accuses him of defiling the girl's body, and the fox wonders how she became a corpse. The protagonist is confused by the accusation of being a murderous demon and understands nothing. He panics and thinks he has discovered his true identity as a member of the sect. She says he doesn't need to say another word and prepares to attack the young man with her sword. The girl uses her Lin Xiao sword technique and creates an aura of energy around herself. She launches an attack of 10,000 swords toward the protagonist. With all her strength, the young man says he has no choice and that he will have to offend her to defend himself from the attack. He moves with incredible speed and dodges all the attacks with ease. The girl is shocked by his speed and can't believe what she's seeing. She says that's not all she's got and prepares to use an even more powerful technique. With a battle cry, she launches her sky-piercing sword strike in his direction. Her eyes glow with a blue light as she concentrates all her energy on the attack. The energy blast flies toward the young man, and he prepares to receive it head-on. He hits the blast with a powerful punch and completely destroys it with his brute force. The girl is horrified to see that he broke her sword cue with his own body. Suddenly, she feels something behind her and turns to see what is happening there. The protagonist appears behind her and hits her, the blow that erases her recent memory. She falls to the ground unconscious, and the young man watches her, not knowing what to do with this situation. He apologizes and says he can't reveal his identity, so he had to do that. The technique he used and infuses power into the palm and directs it to the enemy's brain. This alters the target's memory, leaving them completely dazed and without recent memories. The fox warns him to take her back to her room before someone finds them and they get into trouble. The young man carries her on his shoulder and takes her back to her dormitory as quickly as he can. He runs across the academy rooftops under the moonlight so as not to be seen by anyone there. He puts her down near what he thinks is her room and prepares to leave. Suddenly she starts to wake up and he panics, not knowing what to do with her. He hits her with another memory-erasing blow, but she keeps waking up, making him nervous. He thinks he was almost exposed and feels relieved to have managed to erase her memory. But then he realizes a much bigger problem and despairs at the situation he's gotten himself into. He has no idea where the girl lives and doesn't know how to get her back to her room. From a distance, the chubby guy watches the scene and wonders what the relationship between the two was. He opens the door to an empty room and puts her on the bed so she can rest. He notices the room is unoccupied and assumes she's probably staying there. The girl starts to wake up and wonders what's happening and where she is now. The protagonist hits her with one more memory-erasing blow and leaves her unconscious. He apologizes once again and says he can't let her discover his identity. The scene changes to the next morning, where everyone is preparing for the next test. The white-haired girl wakes up and doesn't remember anything that happened the night before. He worries because he's never used the technique 3 times in a row on the same person before. He thinks it's better to feel guilty than to be discovered and have his family wiped out. He is surprised by the mess in the girl's room and didn't expect that from a girl. Suddenly he notices something on the floor and becomes alert to what he just found there. He sees his own wet footprints on the floor and panics at the trail he left behind. He grabs a mop and starts desperately cleaning the floor to leave no traces. He realizes he left footprints all over the room and decides to clean everything out before leaving. In a gazebo in the forest, a hooded young man calmly drinks tea under the moonlight. He senses someone's presence and tells the person not to hide and to come out at once. The instructor who offended him appears and praises the young prodigy for finding him so easily. The hooded young man says that nothing escapes his eyes and asks why he was hiding. The man gets straight to the point and asks for help dealing with a new student who annoyed him. The young man asks why he should help him, and the instructor offers his support in the next election. He promises to support the young man to become the next head of the family. If he helps him, the hooded young man agrees to the deal and asks for the identity of the student they will face. The instructor reveals that it's the arrogant boy Wu Lingjun, and the young man smiles wickedly. He says he will read the drawing and that the young prodigy just needs to accidentally take him out. The young man agrees to the plan and tells the instructor not to forget his promise. The scene changes to the next morning, where all the students are gathered for the next test. The colorful instructor explains that the assessment will be a doubles competition. To test their skills, the instructor calls him back, and a young man asks what else he wants his help with. The man says he needs help with something else and reveals an unexpected situation. His leg is trapped by a green water dragon, and he can't get free on his own. He begs the young man to save him, and the young man wonders how someone like him became an instructor. With no choice, he decides to intervene and prepares to attack the dragon. With his sword, he cuts off the dragon's tail and frees the instructor from the creature that was holding him. With a powerful blow, he completely destroys the dragon and saves the man from danger. He says it's over, and the instructor falls from the sky towards him. With a look of relief, the young man catches him in his arms, and the man thanks him for his strength and courage. He asks the instructor to let him go, but the man seems to be enjoying the moment. The young man throws him into the water and walks away, leaving the instructor alone and wet in a lake. Elsewhere, the hooded young man finds a spirit and says that he has finally appeared. The spirit warns him that the protagonist is not as simple as he thinks and is very strong. He says that the power the young man showed is something he himself would have difficulty achieving. The young man says that no one in the world can defeat him, and the spirit seems to doubt his confidence. He reveals that he is a time traveler and therefore knows things that others do not. He says he was an ordinary student in another world before being reincarnated. In that place, he was transported to the world of cultivation. After being hit by a truck in an accident, he became a seemingly insignificant young master of the Xiao family and began his journey. The scene changes to the next day, where the students are preparing for the placement test. He trips and falls face first into ox manure and finds a mysterious ring inside. The ring contained the spirit of Master Dan, who helped him become stronger and more powerful. He believes that with his protagonist model, no one can stop him on his path. He says that the protagonist's destiny is to be defeated by him, even if they have no quarrel. Elsewhere, the young master sneezes out of nowhere and wonders why that happened. He doesn't give it much thought and decides to leave since the room is clean and tidy. He leaves the room and closes the door carefully so as not to wake the sleeping girl. He says goodbye and leaves, leaving her alone in the room to rest in peace. The hooded young man returns to his room and finds the door open, which makes him suspicious. He enters the room and realizes someone has been there while he was out and wonders what it is. He approaches the bed and is shocked to find a white-haired girl sleeping there. He can't believe what he's seeing and wonders how a cultivator got into his room. He blushes and is embarrassed by the unexpected situation and doesn't know how to react. He watches her sleep and realizes she is the dream goddess of the younger generation. He remembers that it's not the time to fall in love and tries to focus on the current situation. The scene changes to the next day, where everyone is gathered for the placement test. The instructor announces that the test will be a doubles battle. To assess combat skills, the protagonist joins the other students and prepares for the challenge ahead. The white-haired girl glares at him with a look of contempt and seems determined to defeat him. The hooded young man also watches him from a distance, with a wicked smile and a plan in mind. He approaches a cabinet and takes a potion to help the girl recover. He thinks that a girl cleaning his room and lying on his bed can only mean one thing. With a confident look, he concludes that she must be in love with him and feels excited. He remembers reading comics in his past life and how the heroes always fall in love. He wonders if the white-haired girl is his destined heroine, then approaches her. He realizes she hasn't woken up yet and wonders why she's taking so long. The spirit explains that her consciousness was damaged, which is why she can't wake up. The young man concludes that she spent too much energy cleaning his room, and that's why she passed out. He says he learned first aid in his past life and will help her recover. He kneels beside her and prepares to give her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to wake her up. The girl starts to wake up and wonders what is happening and where she is. He leans in to kiss her, but she wakes up and sees him on top of her with a strange expression. Suddenly, the protagonist hears an explosion and turns to see what is happening. The girl kicks him away and yells for him to never let her see him again. He wonders why she attacked him if she clearly has feelings for him. He concludes that the women of that world are naturally reserved and that he was too fast. The spirit asks why he is so sure she likes him and not that she just went to the wrong room. With a confident smile, he says it's because he was born to be a successful protagonist. Outside, the girl wonders how she'd ended up in someone else's bed and feels confused. The scene changes to the next day, where the students are gathered for the placement test. She vaguely remembers confronting the protagonist, but the details are hazy. Suddenly, she remembers everything and realizes that he is a dangerous demonic cultivator. She accuses him of using bodies for cultivation and is horrified by her discovery. She thinks she didn't expect to stumble upon such a big secret and realizes the danger she's in. With a determined smile, she promises to find proof that he is a demonic cultivator. She shouts his name into the night and swears she will get revenge for what he did to her. The other students hear the shouts and wonder what happened between the two. The next day, everyone is gathered at the performance stage for the next test. They complain about the delay and wonder why no instructor has shown up yet. The protagonist is training with gigantic weights and says he needs to train even more. The fox calms him down and says that with his strength he will definitely get into the top class. The white-haired girl glares at him angrily and calls him arrogant for showing off so much. The other students wonder why she seems so excited to see him and what happened. The chubby guy smiles and says that no one there knows the full story between the two. He says their relationship is deeper than they think and prepares to tell everything, but before he could speak, the hooded young man threatens him with a sword to his neck. He tells him not to slander the girl, and the chubby guy agrees. Terrified by the threat, the young man throws him to the ground and walks away, leaving the chubby guy scared and confused. The others wonder why he got so angry and conclude that he must be a fan of hers. The young man thinks that she is his destined heroine and wouldn't get involved with a nobody. Suddenly one of the instructors shouts for everyone to be quiet and pay attention. The students turn around and see the three instructors standing on the stage, ready to start the test. With a leap, they land on the stage and prepare to give instructions for the next phase. They announce that the third assessment is about to begin, and all the students pay attention. The instructor explains that in this round, it will be tested in real combat with no restrictions. The dean with a new weight watches everything closely to personally evaluate the process. The protagonist notices the headmaster's new weight, and the fox tells him to be quiet to avoid trouble. The colorful instructor presses a button, and a strange machine appears in the middle of the stage. He explains that everyone must draw their combat numbers to determine the fight pairings. The students line up, and one by one they put their hand inside the machine to get a number. The protagonist approaches and prepares to get his number and find out his opponent. He puts his hand inside the machine and feels something strange happen to the paper he picked. The instructor, who hates him, gives the signal to start, and a sharp blade comes out of the machine. The blade cuts the paper in his hand, and he realizes that something is very wrong with the drawing. He looks at the paper and sees that the number is completely destroyed and unreadable. He turns around and sees the instructor laughing with a wicked look and realizes he was sabotaged. Suddenly he feels something strange and turns to the machine to see what is happening. He looks at the paper in his hand and sees the no. 38 and doesn't understand what it is. The instructor continues to laugh and seems satisfied with the result of his evil plan. The scene changes to the combat arena, where the protagonist prepares to face his opponent. The instructor boasts about managing to make the protagonist pick the number he wanted. He says he didn't become an instructor for nothing, and that his plan will work perfectly. The hooded young man says he is not in the same group as the protagonist, and the instructor laughs. He explains that the young man has some strength, but he didn't put him in the same group on purpose. He wanted someone to test the protagonist's abilities before facing him personally. The protagonist sees the shadow of his opponent and wonders who his adversary in the fight will be. He turns and sees a giant muscular man standing in front of him with a look of contempt. The man calls him a weakling and says he should surrender. Before the fight even begins, the chubby guy recognizes the man and is shocked to see who his friend's first opponent is. He reveals that the man is Wang Tiju, a famous and much feared assassin from the martial world. The man says he watched the protagonist's previous assessments and was not impressed at all. He calls him trash with a bit of natural strength and despises him for his lack of skill. He boasts about being at the peak of Chwai refinement and threatens to take him out with a single blow. The fox girl is furious at the provocation and prepares to intervene in the fight. The man challenges her and asks if she wants to fight him right now. Instead of the young man, the other students are eager to see the fight and wonder if the protagonist will succeed. Suddenly a wave of energy emanates from the protagonist, knocks down everyone around him. The fox scolds him for being so polite to his opponent, but he says that what he said is true. The man says that he knows the difference between them. He should kneel and beg. The protagonist prepares to answer and faces the man with a serious and determined look. He says that even though he is weak, he has reasons to keep fighting and that he won't give up. The man glares at him with red eyes of anger and prepares for the fight to come. He tells the young man to prepare to be defeated in the arena and turns to leave. The fox praises the protagonist for his courage, and he gets embarrassed by her compliment. The assassin meets with the instructor and the hooded young man to discuss the plan. He says that if he takes him out, he needs to be placed in the top class, and the instructor assures him he will. He promises he will make the boy understand how powerful he is and that he will defeat him. The instructor hopes the protagonist won't be eliminated in the first round and laughs wickedly. He announces that the drawing is over and calls the first freshman to the combat arena. The white-haired girl is the first to be called, and everyone is excited to see her fight. Her opponent is the white-haired young man, who invites her for dual cultivation again. The other students are furious at his audacity and shout for him to get off the stage. They throw food at him, but he dodges, and the attacks end up hitting the instructor. The man complains that he dodged, but the attacks hit him and he becomes furious with the situation. The hooded young man watches the scene and promises he will remember the young man's name for coveting his woman. The instructor wonders how they got so close so quickly, and the young man says it's the protagonist's aura. The dean tells them to cut the act and announces the start of the first match of the tournament. The students prepare for the fight, and the instructor is covered in food and dirt. The white-haired girl prepares to fight with all her strength and faces her opponent. The white-haired young man boasts of his strength and prepares for the combat to come. He faces the girl and says that this is exactly what he wanted to happen there. He says she doesn't understand the power of it he wins at, and that he will show his true abilities. He prepares to use a special technique, the ghostly Iron Mountain Fall. With a quick move, he creates shadow clones to confuse the girl in the arena. The chubby guy is impressed and says he's using fast movements to create clones. He says that if she can't figure out which is his real body, she will never be able to defeat him. The girl faces him with a serious look and prepares for the coming attack. She notices that all the clones have their legs spread wide in a strange way and gets an idea. She kicks him in a very sensitive spot and he screams in pain, revealing which was his real body. He calls her despicable for attacking there, and she glares at him with a look of pure contempt. He says he has harassed others before and was therefore prepared for that blow. The girl is shocked by his shamelessness and wonders how that is something to be proud of. She prepares to attack again, and he says that since she didn't accept his goodwill, he will not be merciful and will use all his power to defeat her. In the combat arena, he launches a sphere of energy in her direction and prepares for the final attack. He runs around her and creates more shadow clones to confuse her. Once more, the protagonist wonders why he doesn't just throw the G-sphere directly to attack her. The chubby guy explains that the higher the cultivator's level, the farther their chew can travel. He realizes that his father and the fox are actually very strong and is shocked by the discovery. The shadow clones launch energy spheres at her from all sides. She holds the energy sphere and asks if that's all he has to show her. He says the charade must end and prepares for the next attack with more seriousness. She warns him not to underestimate her and prepares for what's to come in the fight. He attacks her from behind, but she turns and dodges the blow with a quick and agile move. He boasts of his control over the Jew-sphere and says she has no chance of winning. He launches the sphere at her, but she catches it with her hands without any problem. She is surprised by how easily she caught the attack and glares at him with contempt. He launches more spheres, and she dodges all of them with agility and grace. On the battlefield, he jumps into the air and prepares for an aerial attack, but she is ready to counter. She hits him with a powerful kick and sends him flying with the force of the blow. The instructors are impressed by her ability to manipulate spiritual energy. The chubby guy explains that it's a secret technique of the Swan sect that controls energy. The white-haired girl prepares for the next attack and faces him with determination. She is furious for being forced to unsheath her sword for such a despicable guy. She launches a powerful attack in his direction and prepares to end the fight. He protects himself with an energy barrier, but she cuts through it with her sharp sword. His pants rip in the middle of the fight, and he is embarrassed by the awkward situation. He is shocked that she managed to break his energy sphere so easily. The scene changes to the protagonist, who watches the fight with interest and curiosity. He seems to be analyzing the techniques of the two fighters. To learn from them, the young man falls to the ground defeated, and the white-haired girl wins the first fight of the tournament. The protagonist is shocked by her ability to control energy and wonders how she did that. The instructor announces that the girl has won the match, and the crowd celebrates her victory. She glares at the defeated young man with a look of contempt and turns to leave the arena. The protagonist wonders if this is what battles between cultivators are really like. Suddenly, a girl is hit by a giant chicken leg and falls to the ground. The protagonist turns and sees a pink-haired girl with an expression of admiration. She says the white-haired girl is the #1 cultivator of the younger generation. The white-haired girl hears the compliments and wishes to be as strong as her one day. The protagonist is impressed by the girl's size, and the fox seems jealous. She turns and hits the fox in the face with her chest, leaving the fox shocked. The fox girl realizes the protagonist likes that, and gets a strange expression on her face. The pink-haired girl looks at the chicken leg and seems very hungry. She asks if the protagonist wants to eat, and his mouth waters at the food. He says he has practiced a lot since yesterday and is really hungry after so much effort. The fox girl wonders what she should do and can't believe a stranger understands him better. The protagonist starts eating the chicken leg, and the fox is shocked by the scene. The instructor orders the defeated young man to be taken away and to prepare for the next fight of the tournament. The protagonist eats and asks the name of the pink-haired girl who helped him. She introduces herself as Mering Chan, a student who entered the academy last year. The fox asks if she is there to compete with the freshmen, and the girl denies it. She explains that she failed and is therefore taking the placement exam again. The protagonist says she doesn't seem nervous, and she replies that if she fails, she will be expelled. The chubby guy reveals that the girl comes from a famous family of renowned alchemists. Her family members are revered everywhere and are highly respected. She developed a technique that combines alchemy with cooking to create powerful food. The protagonist is shocked to learn that the meat he ate was actually a spirit pill. He is embarrassed for having eaten her meat, but she says it's no problem. She says she can't stand to see someone hungry and looks at him with a gentle smile. The young man is charmed by her kindness, and a fox gets jealous of the scene. He calls her an angel, and the fox yells that it's not that big of a deal and he's exaggerating. Suddenly, the white-haired girl approaches and everyone makes way for her to pass. The pink-haired girl approaches her and asks for an autograph. With sparkling eyes she looks at her with an expression of admiration and respect for her strength and skill. The white-haired girl refuses the autograph and warns her to be careful when making friends. The protagonist and the fox watch the scene and don't understand the girl's attitude. She approaches the protagonist and threatens him, saying she will find out what he did. The other students wonder what happened and if what the chubby guy said is true. The instructor announces the next match and calls the protagonist to the combat arena. The white-haired girl glares at him with a challenging look and prepares to fight. The girl asks if he is really close to the other girl, and he says he only knows her. She begs him to introduce them, as she wants to become as strong as the white-haired girl. Suddenly the instructor calls the pink-haired girl to the arena, and she is startled by the shout. She apologizes for not having heard and prepares for her fight in the placement tournament. She asks him not to forget to talk to the other girl, and the young man agrees to try. The fox says the girl is strange and that he should avoid associating with her. He says she seems like a good person and that anyone who cares so much about others can't be bad. The instructor warns her that this is her last chance to pass, and she says she knows. She takes a deep breath and prepares for the fight that will decide her future at the academy. She says she needs to win at least one match to be able to repeat the year and not be expelled. She despairs at the thought of going back to where she came from and focuses on the fight. The instructor calls No. 36 to the stage, and the hooded young man approaches. He glares at the pink-haired girl with a wicked smile and prepares for combat. She stares back at him with a surprised expression and doesn't understand what is happening. He takes off his hood and reveals his identity to the girl, who is shocked to see him there. He says he's on his way and prepares for the fight with a look of pure confidence. The two face each other in the arena and prepare for the battle that will decide their fates. The dean and the colorful instructor watch the scene and wonder how the girl from the Myron family ended up there. The instructor explains that she failed almost all of last year's assessment tests. Even the alchemy test she was supposed to be good at was a complete disaster for her. The instructor says that if she doesn't win any matches, she will have to be sent back home. The protagonist realizes that although she can make medicinal food, she has no combat skills. The instructor announces the start of the match, and the two opponents face each other in the arena. He jumps to the side and gives them space to fight with all their strength and skill. The pink-haired girl says she absolutely cannot lose and prepares for the fight. The hooded young man says he didn't expect to fight such a cute girl like her. He boasts of his vast experience and says he will easily win the upcoming fight. He imagines that after the battle, she will be impressed and throw herself into his arms. Suddenly the girl attacks him with a powerful punch and hits him square in the face. The blow sends him flying and he falls to the ground, stunned by her strength. The protagonist wonders why he is just standing there, smiling instead of fighting. The spirit warns him not to daydream and not to get eliminated in the first round. He says he is the protagonist and won't lose so easily to a girl like her. She attacks him again with a powerful punch, but he grabs her wrist and stops her. He says the same move won't work twice and glares at her with a serious look. She attacks him with a kick, but he dodges and throws her away with a quick move. He prepares for the next attack, and the girl faces him with a look of determination. She runs towards him and prepares for a close-range attack with all her strength. He faces her with a confident smile and prepares for what's to come. In a fight, the scene changes to the protagonist, who watches the fight attentively and learns from both of them. He says that ordinary hand-to-hand combat will never hit him and boasts of his skill. The protagonist cheers for her, and a fox gets jealous of him cheering for the other girl. The pink-haired girl takes a deep breath and prepares to use a secret and powerful technique. She takes out a giant chicken leg and says she absolutely cannot lose the fight. She shoves the entire chicken leg into her mouth, and the young man is shocked by the bizarre scene. The chubby guy realizes she's using spiritual food to increase her combat power. He wonders what will happen if she eats so much at once, since they are real pills. He fears she might explode with so much energy accumulated in her body at once. Suddenly an intense light emanates from her, and the young man shields himself from the energy blast. Her clothes rip from the explosion, and she takes on a wild, more powerful appearance. The protagonist and the fox are shocked and wonder if it was a body explosion or a clothes explosion. The hooded young man's nose starts bleeding, and he laughs at the scene he just witnessed. He says that even with a last-minute effort, she still won't be able to defeat him. The girl says that even if it's impossible, she has to try and prepares to attack. She attacks him with a powerful kick, but he dodges and throws her away with ease. The spirit warns him that her strength is now beyond the K-refinement stage. She says it's not over yet and prepares for an even more powerful and devastating attack. He says he will also take the fight seriously and prepares for the combat to come. The two face each other in the arena and prepare for the final battle that will decide the winner. The scene changes to the protagonist, who watches the fight attentively and learns from both of them. He is shocked to see that she managed to counter the attack with such strength and skill. She attacks him with a powerful kick and sends him flying with the force of the blow. The protagonist praises her strength, but the fox says she is pushing her limits. She explains that at this intensity, she won't be able to fight for more than a few minutes. The pink-haired girl breathes heavily and wonders if she managed to win the fight. She looks at her fallen opponent and can't believe she defeated him so easily. The instructor is worried about the young man, but the dean calms him down and tells him not to worry. He says the battle is not over yet and that the hooded young man has not been defeated. Suddenly the young man gets up and says he didn't expect to be pushed by a local girl. He says it seems he needs to show his true strength to win the fight once and for all. He gets up and faces the girl with a serious and determined look. Ready for battle, he says this time he won't hold back and will use all his power to defeat her. He advances toward her with incredible speed, and the girl prepares for the attack. She is surprised by his speed and can't believe what she's seeing there. He attacks her from above, and the protagonist yells for her to watch out for the coming blow. She turns and prepares for the attack, but he is faster and hits her square on. The blow sends her flying, and she falls to the ground defeated and with no strength to fight. He glares at her with a victorious smile and prepares for the next attack with malice. The protagonist watches the scene and wonders why he is acting so cruelly. The scene changes to the instructor, who seems satisfied with the result of the fight in the arena. He creates a blue fire lotus flower and launches it at her with a wicked smile. The attack hits her square on and throws her far away with a powerful energy explosion. Her silhouette is seen in the middle of the explosion, and the young man seems satisfied with the result. She screams in pain as she is hit by the devastating blow and falls to the ground powerless. The protagonist and the fox are shocked by the power of the attack and worry about the girl. Her clothes are torn, and she seems to be suffering from the battle's injuries. The fox covers the protagonist's eyes and tells him not to look at the unfolding scene. The instructors are surprised to see that the young man possesses the blue lotus flame and are impressed. The girl breathes heavily and wonders what happened to her after the powerful attack. He approaches and asks if she still won't surrender, even after everything that has happened. She glares at him with a look of determination and prepares for the next move in the fight. She takes a bottle and drinks its contents in one gulp to regain her strength and power. The liquid engulfs her in flames, and she prepares to attack with renewed and surprising force. He is shocked by her recovery and can't believe what he's seeing there. She attacks him with a series of powerful punches and hits him square on with all her strength. He tries to defend himself, but she is faster and hits him repeatedly without stopping. She attacks him with relentless fury and leaves him no chance to counter the blows. The instructors wonder if the girl has gone crazy and watch this scene in amazement. The protagonist notices that her aura has intensified and wonders if she has leveled up. The scene changes to the girl, who seems to have awakened a new power within herself. The fox explains that she is pushing her limits with even more pills to win. She says that at that moment the girl is literally burning her own life force to fight. The pink-haired girl says she can't lose and continues to attack with all her might. He defends against the blows and notices her stubbornness in not giving up the fight. He says he won't hold back anymore and prepares to use a powerful and final attack. He attacks her with a blue lotus explosion and throws her far away with the force of the blow. The explosion hits her square on, and she is thrown back with no chance to defend herself. She screams in pain as she is hit by the attack and falls to the ground defeated and powerless. He prepares to attack again, but the instructor yells for him to stop the fight. He says the fight could end in tragedy and orders the combat to be stopped immediately. He attacks her with a blue lotus whirlwind and traps her in an energy vortex. The instructor shouts that the match is over, but he doesn't stop the attack and continues to fight. He says it's too late and that he won't stop until she surrenders and gives up the fight. The girl wonders if it's really over and prepares for the worst to come. Suddenly she remembers her past and how she was scolded by her family. Her father accuses her of dishonoring the family by studying useless recipes instead of alchemy. She says her food also has the effects of pills and doesn't understand why she can't use it. Her father hits her and says that cooking is a disgrace to the Miron family name. He decides to send her to the academy, and if she doesn't learn, they will arrange a marriage for her. He calls her useless and kicks her out of the house, telling her never to see her again. She clenches her fist tightly and says she needs to prove that her food is as good as pills. She remembers her dream of changing people's perception of cooking and despairs in the end. She wonders if anything can really change and if she will be able to prove her worth. Suddenly the protagonist appears in front of her and protects her from the hooded young man's attack. He stops him from attacking and says she is a good person and he can't hurt her. He says that if he intends to hurt her, he will have to go through him first and challenges him. He tries to draw his weapon, but Cannon realizes the young man is really very strong. He says the protagonist is brave and glares at him with a look of contempt and admiration. The instructor interrupts the fight and tells everyone to leave the arena as the match is over. He announces that the winner of the match is the hooded young man, and the girl is devastated by the news. He glares at the protagonist with a victorious smile and boasts about his victory. In the arena, he warns the young man to win the next match, where he won't get the chance to face him. The protagonist says he will do his best to pass the first round and glares back at him. The fox gets angry at his calmness and says the young man was clearly threatening him. The pink-haired girl approaches and coughs weakly, showing that she is badly injured. He asks if she is okay, and she thanks him for saving her from the opponent's attack. She laments not be able to win a single round, even giving it her all in the fight. The scene changes to the next match where the protagonist prepares to face his opponent. The white-haired girl glares at him with a look of contempt and seems determined to win. The hooded young man watches him from afar with a wicked smile and a plan in mind. She begins to cry desperately and feels humiliated for losing the fight. Suddenly she starts to throw up and the protagonist worries about her condition. He says she's fine and the fox prepares to get healing pills to help her. She says she ate too much and ended up throwing up, but the fox complains that it looks like blood. The protagonist offers to help her rest and she thanks him for his kindness. The instructor calls him and asks where he thinks he's going with the pink-haired girl. He says it's his turn to fight, and the protagonist prepares for the combat to come. He reveals that his opponent is the assassin Wang Yizhu, and the man glares at the young man with contempt. He tells the fox to take the girl off the stage and she reluctantly agrees. She wonders why she has to take care of that foolish woman and takes her to a safe place. The instructor tells the two to prepare for the fight, and the arena falls completely silent. The protagonist and his opponent face each other in the arena, ready for the final combat. The man taunts him and says he has given up his last chance to survive. The protagonist faces him in silence and prepares for the fight that is about to begin. The instructor announces the start of the match, and the assassin advances to attack the young man. He attacks him with his giant weapon, but the protagonist prepares to counter the blow. He says if that's how it is, he'll have to take him out and glares at him with a look of pure malice. The girls worry about the protagonist and wonder if he will be okay in the fight. The fox tells them not to worry, as they don't understand her brother's strength and that no attack will take him down. The protagonist faces his opponent with confidence and prepares for the combat to come. The protagonist wonders what kind of move that is and looks at him with curiosity. The assassin takes a deep breath and prepares to use a secret and very powerful technique. He releases a dark energy aura and shouts with all his might. In the combat arena, an explosion of golden light occurs, and the protagonist watches the scene with great attention. He stomps on the ground with force and prepares for the final attack with a look of pure determination. He reveals his secret technique, the Iron Pillar Dance, and strikes a completely bizarre pose. The protagonist's nose starts bleeding, and he is shocked by the scene he is witnessing. The other students are also disgusted and start to feel sick at the sight. The chubby guy says that's why no one who has seen him fight can stand up. Afterward, the colorful instructor says that using such a flashy move is a disgrace to the academy. The dean scolds him and says the visual effect is just a distraction for the real attack. He points to the other students fallen on the ground and says that something is very wrong with them. The protagonist also feels nauseous and realizes the attack has a hidden effect. The assassin jumps into the air and prepares to attack the young man. While he is distracted, he attacks him with his giant weapon, but the protagonist manages to dodge the blow in time. He says the young man won't escape and chases him around the arena with his weapon in hand. He attacks him again with a powerful blow, but the protagonist continues to dodge. He uses the Iron Pillar Whirlwind Dance and creates an energy vortex in the arena. The other students can't take it anymore and start to throw up at the disgusting scene. The pink-haired girl figures out his trick and prepares to counter the attack. She reveals that his trick is to release a toxic smoke from his iron pillar. He says the entire arena is covered in his poisonous smoke and that the match is already his. The protagonist covers his nose and mouth to avoid inhaling the poison and prepares to fight. The girls complain that using poison secretly is despicable, but he doesn't care at all. He says that on a stage of life or demise, all means are fair to win the fight. The instructor smiles and thinks that he is exactly the kind of assassin he hired. The hooded young man almost fell for the trick, but the instructor corrects him and says he actually did fall for it. The assassin attacks him with his giant weapon and tells him to perish in agony. In the arena, the protagonist feels his body become paralyzed and his head ache from the effect of the poison. He wonders what is happening and realizes he is in a very dangerous situation. The man mocks him and says he can't even use 10 of his strength now. He says he will end his suffering quickly and glares at him with a cruel look. He attacks him with a powerful punch, but the protagonist manages to defend against the blow. The blow injures him, but he doesn't give up and prepares to counter the opponent's attack. The assassin attacks him with a series of punches, and the protagonist struggles to stay on his feet. He hits him repeatedly with his frantic Iron Pillar Dance and leaves him no chance. The protagonist is hit from all sides and seems to be losing the fight badly. The pink-haired girl can't believe he is losing so badly, and the fox yells for him to stop. She yells at the instructors to stop the match, but they do nothing to intervene. The instructor says he still has the ability to fight, so they can't stop the fight. The protagonist continues to be hit but doesn't give up and prepares for the counter-attack. The white-haired girl watches the scene from afar and seems disappointed with his strength. She says if that's all he's got, he truly disappoints her and glares at him with contempt. The assassin prepares for the final blow and raises his weapon to attack the young man. He hits him with a devastating blow, and the protagonist seems to have been finally defeated. The girls are shocked by the scene and can't believe what just happened. The man is surprised to see that the protagonist is still standing and stares at him in amazement. The young man holds his weapon with his hands and stops him from attacking again with his strength. He says that with the little strength he has left, he still wants to resist and glares at him with contempt. The protagonist says that it's because he has little strength, that he needs to put everything into his last punch. The man laughs and says that a weak punch like that won't be able to hurt him at all. He hits him with a powerful punch to the stomach, and the man is shocked by the force of the blow. He can't believe that such a weak punch could cause so much damage to him. An energy explosion emanates from the protagonist and hits the assassin with all its force. The blow sends him flying and he falls to the ground, defeated and with no strength to fight. The girls and the chubby guy are shocked by the scene and can't believe the turn of events. The man gets up and faces the protagonist with a look of pure anger and determination. He attacks him again with a powerful punch, but the protagonist prepares to counter. The blow hits him square on, and the man screams in pain from the force of the attack he received. He falls to the ground defeated, and the protagonist wins the fight with his last ounce of strength. He stands up injured but victorious and says he won the fight with his final blow. The assassin can't believe he lost and says it's impossible to have been defeated. He asks how the protagonist defeated him if he was poisoned and had no strength to fight. He wonders if the young man has some special ability that protects him from the poison. The protagonist says that this is the power he has, even after being weakened. The man calls him a monster and stares at him with a look of pure fear and admiration. The instructor announces that the winner of the round is the protagonist, and the crowd cheers. He celebrates the victory and feels relieved to have managed to pass the first round. The dean orders the poison mist that the assassin released in the combat arena to be dissipated. The colorful instructor uses a fan to clear the air and release everyone from the effect of the poison. A rain of antidote falls on the students, and they begin to recover from a poison. They feel their bodies returning to normal and their strength gradually being restored. The protagonist also feels better and realizes the poison didn't affect him that much. The pink-haired girl congratulates him on the victory and jumps for joy in the arena. She hugs him tightly and says he is even more powerful than she imagined. The fox is furious at the scene and prepares to separate the two with great jealousy. She stomps on the ground and prepares to attack the girl, who is hugging him. She pushes her away and yells not to get so close to her brother. Lincoln, the girl, says she just wanted to congratulate him, but the fox accuses her of wanting his body. The scene changes to the next fight, where the protagonist prepares for his next opponent. The hooded young man complains that he should be the one surrounded by pretty girls, not the protagonist. The instructor says the young man's strength really exceeded his expectations and admires him. He asks if the hooded young man is sure he can handle him, and he replies that he is. He says that in his dictionary, the word lows does not exist, and prepares for the fight. Suddenly an old man interrupts him and hands him a paper with a fine. He says that setting fire to the academy results in a fine of 500 spirit stones. The young man gets annoyed and asks who he is and why he is fining him like that. The instructor holds him back and says that he is in charge of discipline and is the headmaster's uncle. The old man glares at the young man with a serious look and leaves him speechless with his presence. He points to the headmaster and says that he is watching everything with attention and care. The young man pays the fine, but the old man fines him again for attacking an academy staff member. He is furious with the situation, but the instructor calms him down and tells him to pay the fine. He promises to get revenge on the headmaster and the old man, and also on the protagonist for everything that happened. He glares at the young man with a look of hatred and promises he will get his revenge on him too. The protagonist feels a chill and wonders why it suddenly got so cold there. The chubby guy congratulates him for defeating a 5-star assassin so easily. He says that thanks to him, he got a lot of information that will sell well in the black market. Suddenly the instructor calls. The chubby guy says he is the last one to fight in the first round. The young man is shocked and prepares for his fight in the final placement tournament. The scene changes to the arena, where the chubby guy prepares to face his opponent. The chubby guy faces his opponent in the arena and prepares for the fight to begin. His opponent is Yuji Azu, a red-haired young man with a serious and confident look. The dean reveals that the young man is his useless grandson, and the colorful instructor is surprised. He says the boy refuses to learn the family's techniques, so he sent him to the academy. The other students find out he is the headmaster's grandson and comment on his appearance. The protagonist warns him that he's gonna get beaten up badly, but the chubby guy laughs and underestimates him. He says his intelligence can compensate for his lack of combat skills. He reveals that he has a lot of information on the headmaster's grandson and is prepared for the fight. He says that with his sex secret techniques, he won't go down without a fight in the arena. The instructor announces the start of the match, and the chubby guy prepares to use his technique. He uses the divine technique of the open celestial eye, and a third eye appears on his forehead. The fox explains that it is a secret ability that can glimpse the future and is very rare. The chubby guy faces his opponent and prepares to use his ability to predict his movements. The red-haired young man says the fight is getting interesting and prepares to attack. He uses the TNG deduction to analyze the probabilities of his opponent's attack. He predicts that the probability of him using earth techniques is 85. The young man uses the earth rock frost, and the chubby guy prepares to dodge the attack. He creates a giant rock wall and launches it towards the chubby guy with all his strength. The chubby guy dodges the attack, and the red-haired young man is surprised by his agility. He says the attack path was already in his calculation and that he won't be hit. The protagonist says the chubby guy is quite agile, and the fox confirms it's because of his celestial eye. She explains that with this ability, he receives thoughts from a divine ancestor of the Tian sect. Basically, it's as if he's possessed by a god, which is why he can fight so well now. The headmaster's grandson is now faced and prepares for the next attack with his hands glowing red. The chubby guy then calculates that there is a 90% chance of the opponent using close-range martial arts. Suddenly, the young man uses a technique to shorten the distance and advances quickly towards him. With a quick move, he appears in front of the chubby guy and prepares to attack him with a punch. The young man doesn't panic and tells himself he just needs to raise his hand in a certain position. With a confident smile, he believes he can easily block the opponent's attack, but to his surprise the young man's punch hits him square in the face. With devastating force, the blow sends him flying and the chubby guy falls to the ground, completely knocked out and defeated. The headmaster's grandson himself is surprised by the result and doesn't understand what just happened. The chubby guy is lying on the ground with a giant bump on his head and seems to be out of the fight. The protagonist shouts his friend's name, worried about his current state. The young man gets up and writes in his notebook that he needs to calculate the difference in strength next time. The protagonist shouts that it's not the time for note-taking, and the chubby guy faints again on the ground. The instructor congratulates the young master on his victory and wonders if the chubby guy will be okay. The headmaster says his grandson has progressed but still refuses to use his family's techniques. The red-haired young man looks up and faces his grandfather and the instructor in the academy tower. Without a word, he just turns and walks away from the combat arena with a serious look. The instructor then tells young master you to leave the stage and prepare for the next round. Meanwhile, the protagonist carries his friend on his back and praises him for his strength in the fight. The young man says he wanted to learn that technique, but the chubby guy replies that he doesn't need it. Suddenly the instructor announces that the second round will also have randomly chosen opponents. The red-haired instructor asks if the drawing will really be random, and the headmaster says he doesn't know. The hooded young man worries about not being able to face the protagonist, but the instructor calms him down with a wicked smile. He reveals that the young master has offended many more people than they think. He then crumples a piece of paper in his hand and says the first match of the round has already been decided. Opening the papers with a nervous face, he prepares to announce the names of the next fighters. The instructor then shouts the name Wu Lingjun, and the young man watches the stage attentively for a fight. And his opponent is none other than the hooded young man, Zhao Zuo, who smiles wickedly. The pink-haired girl and the fox wonder how the drawing was rigged like that. The instructor shows the papers and denies any manipulation, saying the academy is fair to everyone. The hooded young man agrees with the charade and jumps into the arena, ready for the combat to come. He provokes the protagonist, asking if the young man is afraid of his strength, and the fox gets angry. The young master tells the girl that's enough talk and prepares for the upcoming fight. With a serious look, he says he can't back down if he wants to get into a better class at the academy. The pink-haired girl thinks he's cool, but the fox is jealous while the chubby guy takes notes. The protagonist steps into the combat arena and faces his opponent with a serious and determined look. The hooded young man smiles and says he didn't expect him to actually have the courage to fight him. With a wicked smile, he prepares to attack the protagonist with his giant sword. Without waiting for the fight to start, he advances and says he's going to settle the score with the young man. The fox shouts that it was a surprise attack, but the instructor pretends the fight had already started. Furious, she complains that everyone at the academy is picking on her brother and calls them despicable. The young master manages to dodge all of the opponent's attacks with impressive agility. The hooded young man continues to attack relentless but can't hit the protagonist at all. The instructor is shocked by the young man's speed and can't believe what he is seeing. Suddenly the protagonist appears behind the opponent and the instructor yells for him to watch out. With a powerful punch, he prepares to hit the hooded young man from behind. With everything he's got, the young man turns and blocks the blow, saying that although the young man is fast, it's not enough. An explosion of blue flames occurs and a shockwave hits the entire combat arena. The protagonist is thrown far away by the force of the explosion, and the opponent is left unharmed. He manages to protect himself from the flames with his arms, but seems to have gotten slightly burned. The young man says he has already figured out his fighting style and won't let him get any closer. The protagonist blows on his burned hand and complains that the opponent's flames are very hot. With a serious expression, he realizes the situation is becoming very dangerous for him. The hooded young man then concentrates a large amount of blue flames in his hand. He summons two gigantic fire dragons and prepares for the final attack. In the arena, the protagonist backs away and realizes the temperature is too high to block with his body. The instructor smiles wickedly and hopes the hooded young man corners the protagonist. The white-haired girl says it's time for the young man to reveal his demonic techniques to win. The protagonist is in the corner of the arena and realizes he has nowhere left to retreat now. With a wicked smile, the hooded young man shouts for the protagonist to perish once and for all. The two fire dragons then advance towards the young man. With impressive speed, the young master says he has no choice and needs to use all his strength to win the fight. The girls get excited, and the chubby guy wonders what technique Boss Lincoln will use, now making a sign with his hands. He prepares to use one of his secret immortal techniques. The young man then shouts the name of the technique, which is the chest press, and pushes the flames away. The opponent shouts that that's not an immortal technique, and the young man says it's from his fitness experience. The hooded young man praises him for catching the dragon, but warns that his tricks are not over yet. Suddenly the flames end. The protagonist's hands explode and scatter throughout the combat arena. The flames then transform into dozens of blue fire lotus flowers surrounding the young man. The opponent challenges him to catch all the lotus flowers with this impressive attack density. The protagonist says that to win, he needs to use an immortal technique even stronger than the previous one. He then prepares to use another of his secret immortal techniques to defend himself. The young man uses the side-to-side jump and creates several after images of himself in the combat arena. The white-haired young man is shocked, thinking he learned his technique, but another corrects him immediately. With his quick movements, the protagonist manages to dodge all the fire lotus flowers. The opponent realizes he is using the airflow to blow the flames away and finds him annoying. He says the young man is now surrounded by fire energy and prepares for the next attack. He then uses the fire rock confinement prison and traps the protagonist in the arena. The others wonder how he used an earth technique if he has an affinity for fire and metal. The instructor boasts about the young man's elemental exchange technique, and the opponent gets annoyed with him. The hooded young man scoffs at the others for not knowing the principle of the world's 5 elements. The headmaster is impressed by the technique and tells the instructor to record everything with a projection stone. The instructor worries about the cost of the crystal, but the headmaster doesn't seem to care about the money. The young man says he now knows the principles of the world and that his techniques no longer have limits. With a battle cry, he prepares to attack the protagonist with his new powerful technique. Using the rock-piercing explosion, he launches a devastating attack toward the young master. The rock prison explodes, and the pieces fly everywhere with impressive force. The chubby guy and the pink-haired girl shout the protagonist's name, worried about his safety. The red-haired instructor mourns the loss of his spirit stones and almost faints from the pain. The pink-haired girl prepares to save the protagonist, but the fox stops her from going. The young girl asks why she is stopping her from helping, and the fox tells her not to worry. With a confident smile, she says that such a small technique won't be a problem for her brother. The hooded young man smiles with satisfaction and says that a native of this world will never be a match for him. Suddenly he feels a tremor in the arena and wonders what is happening to the ground. The ground starts to shake violently, and the entire arena begins to crack and crumble. The other students wonder if it's an earthquake and are frightened by the situation in the arena. The fox smiles wickedly and says that Brother Lingjun is finally gonna show his true power. Suddenly a golden light emanates from the protagonist, and he is revealed to be completely unharmed by the attack. With a powerful move, he uses the high-speed bench press and breaks the rock prison. The hooded young man is shocked by the scene and can't believe his attack was nullified. The fox says that compared to her brother's normal training, that is nothing, and the other girl agrees. The protagonist breathes a sigh of relief and says the weight is still too light for him. At the moment, the opponent gets angry and says it's impossible for someone from this world to embarrass him. As the chosen one, he refuses to lose to a nobody and prepares for the next attack. Using the power of metal and earth, he imbues his sword with the weight of 10,000 pounds. He then launches the thunder cut toward the protagonist with all his strength and in power. The headmaster says the young man's anger has clouded his judgment, and a colorful instructor agrees. He forgot that his opponent is better at close quarters combat and prepares for the counter-attack. The protagonist uses the body rotation exercise and spins to dodge the sword attack. With a quick move, he dodges the blade and the sword ends up stuck in the arena floor. The hooded young man is shocked to see that his mysterious black ruler was caught by the opponent. He watches the protagonist's fist approaching his face and can't react in time. The punch hits him square on, then sends him flying with the force of the devastating blow. The opponent is stunned by the blow and doesn't understand how he was hit so easily. The protagonist appears in front of him and says he lost the fight and that it's all over now. The girls celebrate the young master's victory, and the fox shouts that she wants to have his babies. The instructor is furious with the defeat and calls the hooded young man useless for losing. The protagonist then turns and walks away, leaving the defeated opponent behind in the arena with his eyes shadowed with anger. The young man shouts for the young master to stay where he is and not leave, refusing to lose. He asks Master Dan to lend him his strength for one last play. Master Dan bellows that it's insanity to ask for his power, refusing to risk his own soul for a mere test, but the boy insists, saying that if he doesn't stand out now, his coming to this world will have been for nothing. His mind flashes back to when he was just an ordinary student, getting bullied for reading manga on the street. Filled with rage, he used to fantasize about having a protagonist powers just to get back at everyone. Suddenly a voice yells for him to watch out, and the young man looks over completely confused. A truck barrels toward him at high speed, and he instantly realizes the driver won't be able to brake in time. The next thing he knows, he simply wakes up in the world of the manga, stunned to have been truly transported. Even after becoming a young master, he was still looked down on and others would throw things at him. However, the boy swears he won't be worthless anymore, because now he has a mysterious ring. Just like in the stories, the ring contained the soul of a powerful cultivator named Master Dan. Before his demise, the man was a master of alchemy and helped the young man grow much stronger. With his new abilities, he got revenge on everyone who had humiliated him and put them in their place without mercy. Because of his incredible performance, he began to earn the respect and admiration of his family. The young man then decides he will become the clan leader to prove he was no longer a failure. Back in the present, he claims that with the protagonist power, there's no way he can lose to some random nobody with little choice. Master Dan sighs, admitting there's no dealing with the boy's stubbornness. He warns that the energy he has stored will only last for a short time and gives him a heads up. The spirit cries out in agony, telling the young man to use this power with great care and wisdom. Surrounded by a golden aura, the boy tells the master not to worry, declaring that victory is already his. Up in the observation tower, the instructor notes that the boy's aura feels off, and the headmaster agrees. Master Dan explains that despite his strength and life, he can only grant him the power of the golden core stage. But the boy smiles, saying, the important thing is being able to use the 5-element flames, combining the elements of metal and water. He gathers his power for a massive strike. With a battle cry, he unleashes a blast of blue energy straight at the protagonist. The attack scores a direct hit, completely engulfing him in a watery explosion. Now the young master is trapped inside a sphere of water, looking like he's about to drown. The pink-haired girl is astonished, wondering how he suddenly recovered his strength, and noticing his cultivation also jumped to the golden core stage. The fox girl shouts that it's impossible for a freshman to have that kind of power and accuses him of cheating, but the instructor cuts her off, telling her not to make accusations without proof. The hooded boy comments that even with all the strength, being submerged is sure to affect him. The other students start shouting that this is more than a fight, and that they're being pulled into the arena. Suddenly, even the academy's headmaster is nearly swept away by the battle's aftershock. He unleashes a wave of red energy to quell the fight and protect the crowd, leaving everyone jaw-dropped that he settled it all with a single move. One student remarks that he doesn't regret coming to an academy with such strong people, while another points out that the headmaster's fake legs are showing because he's flying so high. Meanwhile, the hooded boy tells himself he refuses to be ordinary anymore, and that he must win no matter what. Out of nowhere, an intense light shines from within the water prison. On the verge of bursting with a mighty punch, the young master shatters the aquatic prison and breaks free from the attack. The hooded boy is frozen by the sight, unable to process what just happened. The young master declares that he has more to fight for and gears up to strike back. He then channels his immortal technique, which appears to be nothing more than a simple straight punch. The punch lands squarely on his opponent, sending the guy flying with overwhelming force. The hooded boy is floored by the power of the blow, struggling to believe its raw strength. This impact causes a massive explosion in the arena, kicking up an immense cloud of dust. The resulting shockwave destroys everything around, forcing the students to shield themselves as best they can. The others thank the headmaster, relieved that the blast wave barely missed them. In the stands, the headmaster wonders aloud how a punch with no spiritual energy could be so powerful. Utterly stunned, the smoke finally clears, revealing the arena floor, now completely torn apart by the battle. Sprawled on the ground, the hooded boy is in disbelief, and the master confirms his defeat. He refuses to accept his loss and tries to fight back, but the spirit tells him to stop wasting his effort. Just then the protagonist approaches and apologizes, leaving his opponent even more baffled. Without hesitation, the young master strikes him with the boy's own weapon, who cries out in pain. The blow knocks him out cold, leaving him completely dazed on the arena floor. With a serious look, the protagonist reveals a secret. As it turns out, he's a transmigrator too. The instructor is furious, wondering what that scoundrel's true strength really is. The winner of the match is announced, and the young master celebrates as the crowd goes absolutely wild. The two girls rush onto the stage and hug him tightly, congratulating him on the victory. The boy gets a little flustered and admits the fight took a lot out of him. At the end, the pink-haired girl tells him not to worry, assuring him she has plenty of food. She then pulls a giant piece of meat from a very strange place, catching everyone off guard. The fox girl yells at her to keep the food somewhere else, but the girl doesn't see what the big deal is. The young woman simply explains it's where she has the most space, and the fox girl nearly faints at the absurd scene. As he eats, the fox girl decides she's gonna learn how to cook, so she can give the other girls some competition. The instructor bellows that the competition is over and orders them to get off the stage at once. Suddenly, inspiration strikes the protagonist while he's eating a giant piece of meat. With 2 pieces of meat in his hands, he dashes toward his fallen opponent. On the ground, the young master offers the food and asks if the other guy is hungry. The hooded boy glares at the piece of meat with disgust and rejects the offer angrily. He slaps the meat away and yells that he doesn't need the protagonist's pity. The hooded boy stones off and the fox girl gets annoyed, but the young man stops her from doing anything. The pink-haired girl calls him generous, but the boy explains that they're from the same place. The 2 girls look confused, wonder what he meant by them being from the same place. The instructor, who despises him, scoffs at the boy, saying it's a disgrace for him to call himself the chosen one. A malicious glint in his eye, he thinks he needs to find another way to handle the protagonist. Out of nowhere, a hand appears and slaps a fine right onto the instructor's face. The old man from the disciplinary committee has arrived, fining him 100 spirit stones for spitting on the ground. The instructor is taken aback but quickly composes himself and agrees to pay the old man. He pays the fine with a resentful glare and vows to get revenge on the protagonist for this humiliation. Far away, the protagonist suddenly sneezes and wonders what just happened to him. The girl offers him some soup, but he brushes it off, saying someone must be thinking about him. Suddenly the white-haired girl appears, calling the protagonist's name with a grave expression. Her gaze is cold and determined as she stares him down. Saying nothing more, the white-haired instructor tries to intervene, warning that it's not her turn to fight. She admits the protagonist has some strength, but completely ignores him. To address the instructor, the girl says she was surprised he resolved the last match so easily, then insults his fallen opponent. Furious, she proclaims that, since the others couldn't force him to use his true techniques, she'll do it herself. The protagonist gets flustered and stammers, confused as to why she's accusing him of being a demon. She asks the instructor if she can fight now. He agrees, but says she must draw an opponent. With a wicked and confident grin, the white-haired instructor clearly has a plan in mind. The girl simply raises her sword and challenges all the remaining students to fight her at once. Her arrogance leaves the others speechless, but one of them admits that having a high cultivation level is incredible. The hooded boy says that she's the woman he's chosen, but the spirit reminds him that she's after the other guy. The spirit even rubs it in, mentioning he heard the other guy is also a transmigrator, and tells him to stop dreaming. However, the boy just smiles, saying that having a transmigrator as a rival only confirms his status as the chosen one. Master Dan has lost all patience, wondering how he got stuck with this kid. With a look of pure resolve, the young man vows to overcome every obstacle and crush anyone in his way. The instructor asks the headmaster if this isn't against the rules, but he just replies that this is how young people should be. The headmaster asks if she is certain about her decision, and the girl confirms she doesn't want to waste any more time. With an excited shout, the headmaster urges her to show them what the youth of today are capable of. The instructor then yells in frustration and announces the start of the battle between the girl and the other students. The others, irritated by her attitude, prepare to attack with everything they've got. She scoffs at their techniques, calling them cheap tricks as she readies herself for battle. She then unleashes her 100 swords dance technique, and a blinding light emanates from her body. One of the students declares he'll break all laws with his strength. As he lunges forward, he uses the purple thunder frenzy blade technique, but the girl seems utterly unimpressed. With a look of pure disdain, she asks if he truly wants to compete in raw power with her. Suddenly his sword begins to fracture as an intense light radiates from a white-haired girl. His sword shatters into a million pieces and the boy can only stare. Stunned by her power, the resulting shockwave hits him head-on, sending him and the other students flying. He soars across the arena before crashing to the ground, completely defeated and unable to continue. The red-haired boy and the chubby one watch the scene, floored by the girl's sheer force. The man is knocked out on impact, his face a mask of pure pain and surprise. As he hits the floor, the red-haired boy compliments the girl for taking down the young master with a single move. The chubby one is also in awe, saying her sword skills are just on another level. Just then the headmaster's grandson yells at the chubby guy, demanding to know why he hasn't entered the arena yet. With a confident smirk, the red-haired boy declares he will never lose to anyone. Suddenly a blade comes flying at the girl, but she dodges it with a swift movement. The boy attacks, but she evades the strike and immediately prepares her counterattack. With a powerful kick, she lands a solid hit, sending him flying across the arena. The others try to take advantage of the opening and get ready to attack the girl from behind. Growing weary of the endless fighting, she decides to end it all with one final move. With a swift motion, she prepares to unleash an even more formidable sword technique. The others gasp when they see she can fly, wondering if she's already reached the golden course stage. The red-haired boy explains it's not flight technique but sword control, and the chubby one confirms he's read about it in an academy book. All at once a brilliant light envelops the girl, leaving everyone staring in amazement. The other students complain that the light is censoring the view and call the girl shameless. She summons thousands of swords, a look of pure determination on her face as she prepares for the final assault. With a battle cry, she launches the volley of swords to the other students with everything she has. Her opponents are struck down and collapse to the ground, defeated and with no energy left to fight. The pink-haired girl says she's amazing for beating everyone with one move, but the fox girl retorts that while she's strong, Brother Lincoln is even stronger. Suddenly one of the injured students staggers to his feet and glares at the girl with pure rage. He demands to know why she hurt him, and another suggests it was probably on purpose because he was eyeing her. Elsewhere, a masked man observes the scene and remarks that the young lady has grown stronger. The instructor announces the white-haired girl as the winner of the match, who seems lost and in thought. She looks directly at the protagonist, bracing for the final showdown between them in the arena. With a serious gaze, she states it's time for them to settle their differences once and for all. The protagonist asks if she needs a moment to rest, but the girl insists it's not necessary. She explains that defeating the others barely used any of her energy and gets into a fighting stance. The headmaster says they are the strongest contestants and he's eager to see their fight. And the other official agrees. Suddenly, the colorful instructor launches several drones into the arena, preparing for something. The drones start filming the bodies of the unconscious students on the ground in a rather bizarre scene. The robots then begin pulling the students by their hair and dragging them out of the arena. The two finalists face each other, ready for the ultimate battle that will decide the grand champion. Nervously, the boy tries to de-escalate, saying this is all a huge misunderstanding. She shouts for him to be quiet and vows to force him to reveal his demonic identity. With an awkward smile, he says she's gravely mistaken, as he doesn't even have any cultivation. He asks why she despises him so much, and the girl just glares at him with pure hatred. The young woman screams that he has no idea what she's been through, as her mind flashes back to her past. Seeing her fury intensify, he realizes he said something terribly wrong. Without a moment's hesitation, the girl launches a powerful sword attack at the protagonist, sensing the immense energy. He knows he absolutely cannot block that strike head-on. The young master quickly uses his immortal high jump technique to evade the attack. Blow slams in the ground, causing a gigantic explosion and kicking up a massive cloud of dust. With a powerful leap, he soars into the sky, successfully escaping the girl's assault. He continues to ascend, bracing himself for whatever comes next in this final battle. The headmaster's grandson is stunned, while the chubby guy cheers for Boss Lengen's incredible power. Relieved, the protagonist thinks to himself that he finally managed to dodge that dangerous attack. Flying up on her sword, the girl says she'd like to see how he plans to dodge now. While in midair, she readies herself to use one of her most powerful techniques to end this fight once and for all. The girl then unleashes the heaven-splitting sword, sending a devastating attack crashing downward. The impact creates an explosion in the arena, even larger than the one before. As the shock wave ripples outward, the girl calmly observes the result of her overwhelming attack. The instructor asks if the fight isn't getting too dangerous, but the headmaster just says it's getting interesting. The protagonist prepares to use an immortal technique, and the girl watches in with rapt attention. With his technique, he manages to catch the girl's giant sword with his bare hands. The pink-haired girl's jaw drops, but the fox girl says his strength is simply unimaginable. Enraged, the girl calls him a demonic cultivator and prepares to unleash her full power. Soaring through the heavens, the young woman readies the 10,000 swords technique. The girl then sends a relentless rain of swords, hurtling down at the boy with all her might. The boy takes a deep breath and prepares to counter with another one of his immortal techniques. With a mighty inhale, he creates a powerful vortex of air around himself as a defense. Using his technique, he manages to catch every single sword, and the girl can't believe her eyes. The instructor, who hates him, finds the scene oddly familiar. Remembering when his own swords were caught the same way, he compresses the captured swords into a ball of energy just as the girl rushes into attack. The young man hurls the energy ball back at her, telling her she should just admit defeat. The energy ball slams into the ground, and the girl shrieks, infuriated at the boy's audacity. With hatred in her eyes, she vows she will never surrender to a demonic cultivator. The story flashes back 10 years to Eugene Peak, where a little girl is calling for her mother. At just 5 years old, little Betty announces that she can already sense spiritual energy.